What I want to talk to you about today is taking our religious beliefs lightly while taking our spiritual practices seriously. You can do a spiritual practice seriously and benefit from it that you don't even necessarily believe in. Like, for example, in my case, prayer. So I'm going to get to this a little bit later on, and we're going to actually talk about prayer. But before we get to all that, I feel like I need to address the elephant in the room, which is the shirt. It was the only clean one I had available. I'm aware that it looks like I'm about to go to an interview for a summer job at Arby's, and I took it from my dad's closet, but it was all I had available, so stop looking at it and pay attention. Here we go! Here's why this issue of religious beliefs and the employment of spiritual practices that you may not be 100% on board with, here's why this is on my mind. I recently got really triggered, okay? And I was gonna use pseudonyms and whatnot and so forth, but I'll just tell you the story. So I got this eye massager that's got heat in it. It looks like a virtual reality headset, and it's wonderful, and it allows me to relax after a long day of being at the computer. So I was laying on my girlfriend's bed with this device of relaxation over my eyes, and I have my headphones on, and I'm listening to some podcast in my own zone, and suddenly I hear her shouting. So she was really mad at her son. Now, those of you who are not Austrian, this is going to blow your mind, but there's some sort of government-sponsored mafia-type group in Austria, and they run around going from door to door, pressuring and coercing you into signing contracts wherein you are then bound to support this group financially. And this group is like some radio or television group that has something to do with public TV in Austria. So you're supposed to support public television and public radio in Austria. And so if you have a TV or a radio, because it's not 1982, we don't have a TV or a radio in our household, right? But nonetheless, this squadron of Austria's version of NPR mafia goons goes door to door and tries to get you to pay them money. I don't get it either. Don't ask. The point is, one of these goons came to our door, and my girlfriend's son was there, and this guy's yelling at him, and he's showing him a badge, and he's saying, "You got to sign here," and he was sort of all right, I'll sign it. The guy seems official. So he signed it, and essentially it was like Faust signing the agreement with the devil. So suddenly we're getting these bills from this group, and we have to pay $100 a month. My girlfriend was upset about that. It triggered her. Her being triggered about financial issues triggered me. She was upset, and I was upset, right? It only lasted maybe 20 seconds, and then we kind of took a time out. But it really, really had an effect on me. And so that night, I couldn't sleep. I had one of those dark nights of the soul where you start thinking about your whole life, right? Not just this moment, but all the context surrounding it, all the problems, all the issues. At some point in the midst of this pitch black, never-ending nightmare of an evening, I found myself voicing the inevitable. Dude, you're a lay Zen Buddhist priest. You have a YouTube channel where you tell people how to live, you bossy little priest. So manifest your own BS. And meditate. Try it. Make it work. So I turned on my light and I put my two pillows together and I sat on them and I tried to meditate. And it was a total failure. I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit, settle down, let my nervous system relax, let my stupid, overactive, perseverating thinking mind relax, and just manifest inhale and exhale, the simplest activity on the planet, and I couldn't do it. And in that moment, because I was tired and still a little bit triggered, the hurricane winds were still blowing around inside of me, I thought, you are a failure. You are a failed monk and a failed spiritual practitioner. And it was a pretty strong feeling. So I decided to do what any self-respecting, failed Zen Buddhist monk does in a moment like this. I scrapped my Zazen meditation and I said a prayer. I mean, I was raised Catholic and I was taught what to pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be it. Hail Mary, full of grace, glory be to the Father. You know, I was given the actual words, but it's funny. I was never taught how to pray. For example, I was never shown how to situate my body on my knees or how exactly to hold my hands when I put them together. You know, in Buddhism and in Zen, there's a real emphasis on body, on what you're doing with your body when you're meditating, on how to do the ritualistic ceremonies. My teacher used to say, for example, when we were doing our funeral ceremonies, there's a type of bow that you do in front of the Butsudan, the altar, and he said you bring your arms out and then you bring them together because you're taking the whole cosmos in your arms. And then you bring it back to your chest or to your heart. And then you do your bows, your great bows, right? And I always found this to be really helpful and deep because as your body does, your mind follows. It really does. Your mind listens to the body. And you know, over the years, I've kept praying. And I've sort of developed my own way of doing it. So now my prayer during moments of extreme crisis and meditation failure sometimes looks like me taking my knees on the bed, bringing my hands together, as was taught by my teacher, pulling them into my chest, and just saying help. That's all I do. Help, help, help. It's a way of taking this, gathering this upset energy together and putting it on this prayer, putting it into this prayer, putting it in the rocket of this prayer. And then just I'm upset, and being upset is good because it's energy in it. There's power in it. Last week I was talking about my good friend Mimi, who is a Vajrayana Buddhist practitioner. And in her tradition, they talk a lot about these energies. All these negative energies that you have are just waiting to be transformed into positive energies. So that's what prayer is for me, right? And it's really helpful instead of sitting there and thinking and beating myself up and getting totally swallowed up and lost inside a dark night of the soul. Put that energy into that prayer and send it out into the universe. Send it out there. Now, I don't really believe whatsoever in the Catholic God that I was raised in. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't buy it anymore, right? And when I say these prayers, I don't really think I'm praying to a God. Let me sum it up this way. As some of you know, I'm working on a novel, right? And long time ago when I was writing in the voice of a character who's a father, and he was talking to his son. And the father is explaining son to the prayer. He's explaining prayer to the son. And at one point he tells his son, listen, if the universe made you such that you cry out inside, then the universe has ears to listen. And that line just came to me at the time, and I thought, that's pretty good. I'm going to keep that. And I think that's kind of true. And so while I don't necessarily, quote, believe in prayer, I do it. And I throw everything I've got into it. And I do the practice with total sincerity and focus. I hold the the belief of or in prayer very lightly, but I take the practice very seriously when I need it. After I said that help prayer, and it worked, I got to thinking about how maybe I identify as a Zen Buddhist and as a lay priest, and maybe that's not so good. And maybe I need to take my own religious beliefs as a Zen Buddhist practitioner a little bit more lightly. I think I was able to put all my energy into that help prayer because I have no expectations that prayer is going to do anything. I don't put all these, heap all my hopes and dreams on prayer like maybe I do for Zazen, which, is a practice I really do believe in. And this got me thinking about the question of, a question that's always on my mind and that I'm constantly sharing with you here on this channel and over on my Patreon page with my writings. And that question is, what is the proper approach to take to these spiritual practices like Zazen or prayer? And I remembered a dream that I had at the monastery. It was like one of these dreams where your subconscious just says, "Here, idiot, here's the answer." So I was head monk at the time, and I was like really stressed out. I'd never had this much responsibility in my life, right? And I was like running around literally from 3 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, and I was stressed, right? So I had this dream. Listen, this is so interesting, right? In this dream, I was in my priest's robes, but I was in World War I, and it was just this massive, massive field in every direction you could look in of gray, brown, wet, horrible mud and fog and a gray sky and then just trenches, right? And all my boys, my men, my troops were in the trenches, right? And I was outside the trenches and bombs were coming and they're blowing up all around me and I'm trying to avoid them and I'm all running around the trenches were all laid in front of me like this labyrinth, right? And I'm like looking down there in the trenches and I see all my boys, the soldiers. And I'm like, I got to get my boys out of these trenches. And it was like a dream that wouldn't end. I'm like running around, trying to figure out how to get them out of these trenches. And at one point, I look down and I see this guy, and he's got these beautiful blue eyes, right? Like just like something out of that new All Quiet on the Western Front movie or the movie 1917 or something. He's brown, everything's brown, these beautiful blue eyes that are shining out from the trench. So I go down into the trench with him and I just sit down. And I say, I'm really stressed out. And he's like smoking the cigarette and drinking from his canteen. He's like, well, have a seat. Have a seat, Sarge. What's the problem, man? And I'm like, well, I'm like spending morning, noon, and night trying to figure out how to get you guys out of the trenches. And he looks at me, and this is my dream, and I'll never forget this dream. And he says, oh, no. You don't have to get us out of the trenches. I'm happy if you're just down here in the trenches with me. And I woke up that next morning and I thought, my job as the head monk is not to solve everybody's problems. It's not to be the spiritual leader. It's just to be in the trenches with people. Furthermore, to my point for this video, meditation and prayer are maybe not supposed to lead you out of the trenches, right? Maybe they're practices to help you be in the trenches with yourself. It's amazing how I keep having to learn this lesson over and over and over. Meditation is not going to help you stop a losing streak. It's not going to magically transform a bad mood into a good mood. It's not going to make you necessarily a better, more patient, more compassionate person. Meditation is just being in the present moment as it is, manifesting the here and now as it is. And sometimes this can be wonderful and a great relief and empowering, and other times you're just sitting in the trench with yourself for a while until the war is over, until the shells stop falling. You shouldn't feel like a failure if you're doing your practice and it doesn't necessarily seem to be working. Just do the practice to be with yourself, or to be with the painful moment. In sum, I recently discovered that it is best to approach all spiritual beliefs lightly. I believe in meditation, but that belief can actually make it harder sometimes for me to meditate, to do Zazen, because I have so much expectations. You know, when you sit down, you never know what's going to happen, whether it's sit down to pray or sit down to meditate. And in order to really go on the adventure that I think this path is, you have to be willing to not take it so bloody seriously. Just take it as it is and take it as it comes. Hope that offers you some help if you have a dark night of the soul sometime soon. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go interview for that summer job at Arby's. My dad is riding me. He needs his shirt back. So very quickly, if you like this video, and hit the like button and hit subscribe. That helps me out with the algorithms. If you want to support this channel, I offer these teachings for free. But if you like what I'm doing here and you want to help out, I've got a Patreon page, and I've got videos up there, blog posts, essays, good stuff over there for you. I'm going to put a link in the description for this video below. You can go check out my stuff over there and support this video over there. Okay, thanks friends. Have a good day.